Hey everyone, today I am going to take you to the journey to the respiratory system of man. Hi, I am O2. You can call me oxygen and I will be your guide today. You may be asking, what is respiratory system? Well, the respiratory system is the system that helps you breathe in and out. So, oxygen can be pumped through your body and carbon dioxide can be removed from the bloodstream. You must remember that respiratory system is made up of many different organs. Here is the overview picture of our respiratory system. So, this is the picture of respiratory system. The system starts with nose, then nasal passage, then pharynx, then trachea, and then these lungs, bronchus, bronchiole, and alveoli, and last but not the least is diaphragm. So dear students, let's begin our tour. Welcome to the respiratory system. The nose and the mouth. This is where it all begins. This is where the oxygen first enters your body and also where carbon dioxide leaves. So, here we go. This is oxygen with the red ball and it is going into the nasal passage through nose, or we can say through nostrils. When the air comes into your nose, it gets filtered by tiny hairs and it is moistened by the mucus that is in your nose. Air can also get into your body through your mouth or oral cavity, but air is not filtered as much as when it enters in through your mouth. Okay, so it is not good to breathe through your mouth. It is good to breathe through the nose. Here is the picture of your nasal and the oral cavity. So you can see these are the nostrils, and the nostrils open into this oral cavity. Nasal cavity, and this is the oral cavity. Oral cavity means the mouth cavity or buccal cavity, and these two cavities, that is the oral cavity and the nasal cavity, they are separated by a hard bony palate, and so that we can breathe in air even when we are eating food. Okay, and this is the portion of the throat called pharynx. Okay, here we go. So we are where? We are in the nasal passage, the pharynx and the trachea. Next we will head down to your pharynx, that is throat, and your trachea, that is windpipe. This is where the air passes from your lungs to your bronchi tubes and lungs. Okay, the part of the throat between the mouth and the windpipe is called pharynx. This is pharynx is shown here, arrow is there, and your pharynx, that is throat, gathers air after it passes through your nose, and then the air is passed down to your trachea, that is windpipe. Now your trachea has a very unique property. It is held open by incomplete rings of cartilage. You can see these rings of cartilage. Without these rings, your trachea might close off and air would not be able to get to and from your lungs. The trachea may collapse and you will find difficulty in breathing. Okay, here we are in the trachea. The upper end of the trachea, the upper end, this is the upper end, this is the upper end, okay. The upper end of the trachea has a voice box called larynx, okay. Now this trachea runs down, the trachea runs down the neck and divides into two smaller tubes called bronchi and its lower end, at its lower end. So let us see. This is actually trachea. So in the chest cavity it divides into two and it enters into the lung. Your trachea splits up into two bronchi tubes. These two bronchi tubes keep splitting on and on, splitting up and form your bronchioles. See, it is shown here. The bronchi, they are splitting into smaller tubules and they are known as bronchioles. Okay. These bronchi tubes split like the tree branches and get smaller and smaller inside the lungs. They get smaller and smaller. Okay. The air flows past your bronchi tubes and into the bronchiole. Remember, from trachea the air comes into bronchi and then to the smaller tubes, that is bronchiole. These tubes keep getting smaller and smaller until they finally end with small air sacs called alveoli. Okay. So this is the picture of your lungs. These are two balloon-like structure called lungs, and this the blue color, with blue color trachea is shown. Trachea in the chest cavity, it divides into bronchi tubes and then bronchi tubes further divides into more smaller tubes, bronchioles, and these bronchioles they end up into the small air sacs called alveoli. Bronchioles. Here we go. So let us first see where we are. We are entering into the bronchi, and then now let's see, we will head over to the alveoli. अब हम alveoli तक पहुँचेंगे and see what happens when the air finally makes it down there. Now see, the walls of the alveoli, actually the alveoli are the pouch, air sacs pouch, which are at the end of the smallest bronchiole. Okay, so they are known as alveoli, and the singular of alveoli is alveolus. Your alveoli are tiny air sacs that fill up with air or oxygen when you breathe in. Your alveoli are surrounded by many tiny blood vessels called capillaries. The walls of your alveoli are so thin that the oxygen or carbon dioxide can pass through them, traveling right out of your blood stream. Here is the close-up picture of your alveoli and the capillary surrounding them. So this is the capillary, and with pink color alveoli is shown, and you can see exchange of gases is taking place. It is shown with the arrows. Black arrow is showing that oxygen is picked up and carbon dioxide is dropped off, and oxygen is picked up by the red blood cells. So here we go. We are where? We are in the alveoli. Okay. So let's take a closer look. It is the alveoli. It is in the alveoli that the gaseous exchange takes place. Okay. The human lungs have been designed to maximize the exchange of gases, as I am going to tell you. There are millions of alveoli in the lungs. For example, if all the alveoli from the 2 human lungs are unfolded, they would give an area of 80 square meters, which is nearly the size of the tennis court. Okay, and this is the close-up picture where this is alveoli and this is the thin membrane, and with pink color capillaries is shown, and you can see oxygen is picked up by the red blood cells and carbon dioxide is dropped off. Now we will look at the diaphragm. You might be wondering, what does the diaphragm do? The diaphragm is an important factor in breathing. It separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. It is located below the lungs and it is a major muscle of the respiration. It is a large dome-like muscle that contracts rhythmically and continuously, and most of the time involuntarily. Upon inhalation, the diaphragm contracts and flattens and the chest cavity enlarges. You can understand through this, through this diagram. So when you breathe in, the diaphragm moves downward and your chest cavity moves upward and outward, so resulting into the increase in the size of the chest cavity. When the size of the chest cavity increases, the air pressure decreases and the air is pushed in, and the lungs, they get filled up with the air. Now at the time of exhalation, means when you breathe out, just opposite of all this thing takes place. The diaphragm moves up and the chest cavity moves inwards. So when the chest cavity moves inward, the size of the chest cavity decreases and the air, which is rich in carbon dioxide, it is pushed out of the body, and the lungs is left with the residual volume of the air. This is the model which you can make to understand the functioning or mechanism of breathing. This is a bottle. There is a bottle. See, this is the bottle whose base is cut, and at the base a balloon is attached here, and one balloon is hanged here with a tube. Okay, when the diaphragm is pulled down, the air is inflated into the balloon, and when the diaphragm is released, then air goes out of the balloon. So this, you can understand this as a lung, and you can imagine this balloon with red color as a diaphragm. So you can make this, and this here, the how this model can be made, it is written here. You can read it from this. So take a deep breath and stay safe. Goodbye.